There are people who are narcissistic and sociopathic, but who are charismatic and emotionally or intellectually intelligent in the right way to present themselves as attractive to especially the vulnerable. And they can break you down and they can rework your mind, and you don't even know what's happening. You believe in the moment that you are being loved.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Fillman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Thank you for tuning in to The Reason We Learn. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure you click the subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified of future broadcasts. Recently, I sat down to talk with Josh Slocum of the Disaffected podcast. If you're not already listening to his podcast, I highly recommend it. You will learn so much about the cluster B personality disorders that have pretty much dominated our culture and are causing a lot of our problems. I wanted to talk with Josh this time, though, because I recently finished watching a Hulu original streaming special called Stolen Youth Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence. Josh is a graduate of Sarah Lawrence College, and I thought he might be able to shed some light on how the unique aspects of the school may or may not have contributed to what happened with the students. It's an amazing story. If you haven't watched this special, I strongly recommend that you do. Just be forewarned, it can be tough to take. What I've found talking with people who've seen it is the most common reaction is disbelief. If you personally have not been on the receiving end of anyone trying to coercively control you or someone succeeding at it at any point in time, if you've never been in a narcissistic relationship, for example, you might find all of it nearly impossible to believe. You might think they chose this. They are not innocent. They're 100% guilty. They're just making it up that they were brainwashed. This isn't really possible, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I hope to change your mind. And I asked Josh to come and help me because coercive control is real. And I do believe it's very important for parents to understand how it works, who's most susceptible, why they're susceptible, and what the warning signs are so that you can catch it before it goes too far. The parents of the kids, young adults, I should say, who were sucked into the web of this particular controller were blindsided. And I don't want that to happen to anyone else ever again. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Josh Slocum. Hey, Josh, how are you doing today?
Hey, Deb, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to have you here to talk to us about the Stolen Youth Hulu series, but more importantly about coercive control itself and the fact that it's real, that it exists. I asked you here specifically because you're a graduate of Sarah Lawrence, where this all began. And I'm hoping you can shed some light on, Sarah Lawrence, and also just in general, your breadth of knowledge about coercive control and, cluster B personality types. Main reason being that I think even still, even with all the discussions and even your great show, there are still people out there who they don't believe the Milgram studies. Like, come on, this wouldn't really happen. So let's just dive right in. Tell us what you know about coercive control from your perspective.
Well, I'll give you my understanding of the term. I think it's always important to sort definitions at the beginning of such conversations. Coercive control is to me a recent and contemporary term that describes the behaviors of an abusive and narcissistic spouse, parent, or authority figure, an important person in your life. It includes all sorts of things like gaslighting, trying to make somebody believe that their perceptions are actually crazy and not consonant with reality. Pathological lying, denying that you committed actions or said words that you did commit and did say. Working that in the reverse, accusing your target, your would-be victim of saying or doing things that she did not do. It is also and often very subtle. It's not as if if you could put a camera in someone's home that had a relationship that could be described this way, it's not as if you'd say, okay, I'm going to do coercive control on you right now. You better blah, blah, blah. It's much more subtle than that. It's undermining someone's sense of their own ability to detect reality or their sense of self-worth. It's dropping subtle hints that make a person feel that they are not good enough for their husband, their wife, their mom, their dad, that if you really loved me, that it would have occurred to you to do this without me telling you. So since it didn't occur to you, that means you don't love me. That's one form that it can take. And it's of course, it's much more subtle than that, right? But to me, this is not an offshoot. It's not something separate. It's not something new. It's just a new term we have for the kinds of narcissistic, domestic, and now public abuse dynamics that both of us talk about in our own ways.
Right. Well, it's so interesting that you describe it that way, because that's exactly what they depict in the show. And for those of you in the audience who have not watched it, or you don't have Hulu, I mean, I would say even do the free trial just so you can watch. It's 3 episodes. But the order of events essentially is, person comes in as an authority figure, father of one of the students, Sarah Lawrence students, bills himself as, former Marine, having worked with the CIA. So he drops all kinds of authoritarian, like I'm an authority type of titles, and starts talking big about, I know Rudy Giuliani, I know Bernie Kerik, I know these people, I work with them, blah, blah, blah. And what's so interesting is the guy had just come out of jail. And yet, because the daughter had kept saying he was wrongly accused, et cetera, and already built up, I think, amongst her friends, a sense of empathy or sympathy for their friend's dad, that this was all wrong, set up. It was, he was set up by these powerful people. They already had this sense of like, somebody's against this great guy before he even walks in the door. And then, when somebody presents as, I'm the older authority, or I know what's best for you, and I love you, I care about you, I want to help you be a better person. And so that's the first setup. Then the second step was, what you've called, and I've called it like love bombing. But even before the love bombing can occur, they ask you to dump. They let you share. They're like, tell me something, tell me about yourself, tell me about your emotional
Their information gathering.
They gather all this information. And you said, if you had a camera in someone's house, what's so amazing is the dude recorded everything. Like he had people who record on their phones, like everything he was saying, everything he was doing. Like he loved the fact that he was the star, the main character in this little movie. And so we have in the show firsthand, witness account for ourselves of how he's doing it. And tell me this. Oh, so your parents didn't really love you. Oh, okay. So what is interesting is then they take the information you dump and tell you what it means. So they download it and then they translate it for you. They feel the emotions for you. They tell you what the emotions are. They tell you what you should feel, should do. So whether if you're confused, especially, someone gives you an easy answer, you're like, oh, thank you. That's what, and especially if it flatters you. If it flatters you that you were like a victim and helpless, or you're correct in your perception, so they build you up. And then the next step, of course, is a devaluation, where we start, at that. And of course, they capture the accusations. Come on, why did you poison me? Why did you poison me? I'm sick now. You poisoned me. I didn't do it. Why are you lying? You're lying now. And this goes on back and forth until such time as the person has tell me what they were literally saying, these words, tell me what to say and I'll say it.
Yeah. It's torture. It's psychological torture.
That's right.
It's what's done to prisoners.
Yep.
It's what's done to sex slaves. Yeah.
Yeah. And my concern is, Josh, that it's being done, and this happened over a period of 10 years. So the other thing is, when you watch the series, the 3 episodes, so essentially like, I don't know, maybe it's 6 hours altogether or something like that. But it's condensed, even with all the footage. So people are like, really that fast? Like 10 years,
10
no,
years, yeah.
Not that fast. And the first thing took a whole year. So Imagine you're a student, you're 6 years old, and you go into a school. This is why it's of interest to me on my channel. And you go into a school, and the school, and I'm not saying they're necessarily malicious, okay? Understand that I'm not saying the people in the school are all like this guy, Larry, in the show.
Yes, right.
What I'm saying is the methods that they are using for so-called SEL, social emotional
Yes.
learning, I do believe end up leaving our students kind of ripe for these people, because they get through the process of don't believe your lying eyes in the school for already vulnerable people. If you're not a vulnerable person, if you're very well attached to your parents and you don't have any comorbidities, depression or autism or ADD or anything else, then your ability to withstand it is going to be greater.
Yeah.
But if you have anything going on, you come from an abusive household for real, things like that, I'm watching the show and going, oh my God, it's SEL, but like on hyperdrive with young adults. Now put a young person in it going, so tell me your feelings. Tell me how you feel about your family. Tell me how you feel about yourself. The amount of information gathering with total strangers.
It's wrong.
It's just fundamentally wrong because of the risk associated. So that person's not malicious, but now all that data is in a system.
It's yeah. Well, the risk associated, of course, you're right, and you're looking at the long-term dire consequences. There's another level on which it's wrong. That is not the relationship a teacher and a student should have.
Right.
That's wrong. That's boundary crossing in a very serious way.
Right.
This is not the relationship of teacher to student. Right. And I'm sure it frustrates you even more. This is your world. It's not my world. But the teachers out there, young teachers, think this is fucking normal.
Yeah.
They think this is normal. And I'm thinking to myself, do you not remember when you were 6 or 7? Do you remember being spoken to this way? Right? Like, why do you think this is normal? I mean, I look at, I listen to, I hear some of the stuff on your show where you where you describe social emotional learning. And I mean, I accept that it's true, but I'm still rocked back in my chair. I'm like, when the hell did school become, this is creepy.
Well, they don't even need to think back to when they were 6 or 7. Okay. Whatever age you are at this moment in time, you go to take a class. I mean, just go to art class, a wine tasting class. I don't care what, but you're going to a place with a total stranger, and now they're the expert at whatever, and you're there to receive information. But they spend the first however long saying, tell me all about yourself. How do you feel about that? Tell me something from your childhood that bothered you. Like, do you feel happy today? Let's do a emotional temperature check. Imagine you went into work every day at your job, and your boss first wanted you to put a Post-it note up on the wall dictating your mood. And then
there are some workplaces like that now.
But this is what I'm saying. Would you feel like this was an appropriate, authority figure to you who has power over you and your livelihood or whatever? Or would you feel a little creeped out? Would the butterflies in your stomach be like, why do you want to know? And remember, and you talk about this too, those ick feelings that we get even as adults when someone pushes over our boundary just a little too much, ask for too much personal, that's a survival skill.
Yes,
that is your body telling you, warning.
It's hardwired. It's evolved. It's not metaphysical. I mean, people can put a metaphysical spin on it if they want. I'm not proposing magic or telepathy. This is intuition. It is sensory data that our minds have learned to automatically parse in a generalizable way. It's not going to tell us specifically what the predator in front of us is thinking. It's going to give us a feeling of fear. It's real. Here's the thing about, I can't prove this, and I don't know how anyone could prove or disprove this. I haven't been able to think of the experiment, but I'm willing to say almost every single time a person gets the ick or fear feeling, that's telling them something true.
Yep.
They are detecting that something is off. They may not know exactly what it is, but that feeling is almost never wrong.
That's a fact.
And even if it is, this is what I say to people, because I'm very mistrusting. And I default to, I'm going to see you as a potential adversary first. That's my disposition to the world, right or wrong, healthy or unhealthy. That is who I am. But when people say, um, you know, oh, I just lost my train of thought on that. It's this. Yes. If you take that stance toward the world that I take, you are going to get some false positives. I accept that. I accept it. I willingly choose it. I am willing to accept the false positives because I believe that I have saved myself from more danger than if I had said, oh no, I can't do that because I might misjudge 1 out of 20. I'd have gotten hurt. So I'm okay with false positives. That's me.
No, I absolutely feel the same way. And, it was, I will tell you, very difficult for me to watch this show. I had to pause repeatedly. There were times I had to get up and like kind of walk around and deep breathe. I mean, if you have been in a situation ever where you were manipulated or you were in an abusive relationship of any kind, a parent, child, teacher, to bullying in school, it doesn't matter. This could potentially be triggering for you. And I know that word is loaded, but what I mean by that is
it's also real.
Yeah, it could bring things to the fore that, are uncomfortable. So I'll be honest with you about that. But at the same time, what I'm hoping is that people will begin to understand it. And if you think to yourself, like, how does this manifest in my child's life, in school, in their sports, in the religious school, or, like wherever your kids are, where you are not, to protect them.
Yeah.
Where they have to do it all on their own, where they have to tune into the ick, and ask yourself, what do I feel about people who are actively trying to get rid of the ick, who are telling my child we need to be friends with everyone, we need to share our feelings and our stuff, otherwise we're bad, we have to be allies, we have to be like support people we don't even know based on immutable characteristics alone, otherwise we're bad people. In other words, the way to be good is
to be vulnerable.
We like Brene Brown on steroids. Like, we have to all be wholehearted and vulnerable. No, you don't. And it's getting to the point in education, Josh, where, Sarah Lawrence, I think, was an extreme example of how bad it can get. And so to that end, my question is for you, I haven't gone there. I don't know when you graduated, but did you pick up or detect when you were there any whiff of toxic empathy, like that this was going to be a place that if a student, as an example, came to the office of the dean of students with their parents and said, one of my roommate's dads is basically living on our couch for the last month, and there's something creepy going on and I don't feel comfortable with them there. And they said to this person, well, they're all adults, they're all consenting adults, and so we really can't do anything about it. And, sorry you're uncomfortable, but there it is. And I got the distinct impression that their view was, we don't want to do anything about it. Like, we don't want the conflict.
Okay.
And I just found that to be extraordinary.
I find it extraordinary too. There's a couple different ways to answer your question. So I was at Sarah Lawrence for 4 years, 95 to 99. I graduated in 99. I was a very different person then. That's 25 years ago. Am I doing the math right in my head, or is it even longer than that? I don't know.
No, I think that's about right.
So I have two things to say about that. One, the person I was then was the perfect victim receptacle for that kind of behavior. I would not have picked up on it because I was not yet awakened. I mean, as you know, but for the sake of context, I come from an extremely abusive household with a mother with severe cluster B personality disorder. So I was raised in that sort of deranged prison hothouse, and I thought this was normal. So I was all kinds of screwed up emotionally, very little wisdom, very little good judgment. So I would not have known, and I didn't know what a lot of things. So, but what does surprise me about that response, they say, we can't do anything about getting this. I mean, how old was the guy? In his 50s, 60s?
He's in his 50s. Mm-hmm.
That does surprise me, because when I was at Sarah Lawrence, I I don't keep up with Sarah Lawrence news because I'm so disgusted by my alma mater. And I wrote them an absolutely acidic, caustic, scathing letter. I poured gasoline on that bridge and I gleefully lit a match, and I'm not sorry, because I don't think there's any fixing an institution like that. But when I was there, they took separate sex dormitories very seriously. They were still normal about things like that. So Sarah Lawrence started out as a girls'
women's
school.
college. When I was in college, it was all women's college.
Yes, and it was an all women's college until 1964.
Yep.
And when I was there, it was still majority women. There were maybe about 25% of the student body was men, 30% maybe. I don't know what it is now. But there was still a very palpable sense that this had begun as a woman's college, and that ethos remained there, right? So there were dormitories that were mixed sex, but you could choose single sex dormitories as well. So, right. And they considered the girls' dormitories to be the girls' dormitories. And that means that, for example, I had a friend who lived in a building called Westlands, which is the main manor house. The original manor house,
right?
Around which the college was built. Victorian Romanesque brick country manor house, right? It looks like it could be in England. Sure. But Westlands had downstairs was the dean's office, the financial aid office, several other deans, but upstairs was girls' housing. And there was a curfew after which I used to go with my friend Kathleen and we watched the X-Files, right?
Yeah.
But there was a curfew after which I, as a man, had to be out of Westlands. Nobody questioned this. We all followed the rules. And there was a matron. She didn't call her a matron, but there was a matron sitting at the front desk. And she made goddamn sure that your male ass was out of there at the right time. And if she didn't want you in, you weren't coming in, right? So I have a hard time believing during my era that they would have said that to somebody. I think they've gotten even more extreme, but that's just a guess on my part.
Well, I mean, it would seem so. Their tagline or whatever it was that they were saying in their admissions marketing material at the time that these students were there was something along the lines of, if I'm remembering correctly, "You're different, we are too." And
I remember that.
And so they did mention that in the show, that one of the reasons that each of these students gave for going there, and one of them was not a Sarah Lawrence student. One of them was the sibling of Sarah Lawrence student who came afterwards. But it all started at Sarah Lawrence, and they said, we all decided to live together because we all hung out together anyway. So they not only were males and females living in the same multi-bedroom dorm, so it was kind of like a house.
Yep.
Away from everything else.
I know. I lived in the buildings where this took place.
Okay. So you've got, it's literally like a small house with multiple bedrooms and even an upstairs and everything. And they said they decided to all live together, and they were all sort of artsy and quirky. And they said, we're all a little different. And as you get to know each of these people, you realize that each one of them started their college journey as a very vulnerable person. You described yourself. I was a very different person. I am telling you that Sarah Lawrence has an admissions policy and a marketing plan that specifically reaches out to people who are vulnerable. So this was fertile hunting ground for a predator. The fact that this is the only story we've heard of is actually a little surprising, because, and you might say, well, Deb, what else how else do you want people to feel like they belong and all of this? I'm like, well, understand something. If you are going to specifically target people who are artsy and sensitive and vulnerable in these ways and bring them all to one campus and then drop all security, like all safety safeguards to strangers from the outside, it's really the same thing as letting the pedophile live next door to the elementary school.
Yeah. Well, okay, and there was, so let me tell you a little bit about what Sarah Lawrence was like then. And because I see the seeds were already there, right? It's part of the reason I was there. You know, the We're Different, You Are Too marketing campaign, if it may have been going on when I was still there, and if not, then it was only a couple years after graduation that they started using that, because I remember that going far back. I was in many ways the perfect. Now, what I'm about to say, I had professors and deans of departments there who were genuinely, even if they were misguided, even if I no longer agree with their politics, were good people who wanted to foster the development of young people. I had professors who took a great personal interest in my academic and social development, and gave that to me as a gift. So I am not saying that all of my teachers were bad people or all the administrators were bad people. But these kinds of places. So I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out when I was 16 years old, took the GED test, got my GED, and went on with my life. I didn't go to school for 5 years. I just worked in the world. I was an emancipated minor at 16. I'd gone to court and became legally an adult. And when I went to school, I had to, and I was coached on this. I had to present myself. I was the non-traditional student. I was the one from a trailer park who didn't know how to use forks, right? I was a high school dropout, right? So I didn't have a transcript of, you know, this, that, and the other thing to give them. But I don't do false modesty. I'm very intelligent and I'm a great writer. And people could see the potential I had to become a good writer in those days. They could see that I was a bright young man. And Sarah Lawrence worked very hard to get me in there and to give me a financial aid package that allowed me to go. So my entrance essay, I don't remember it specifically, but it's exactly the kind of glurge I wouldn't write now. You know, as a poor gay child from blah, 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 who's been oppressed and marginalized, you know, that's what I did, right? And it got me into NYU, Columbia, Skidmore, Swarthmore, several other schools that are not, but are like the Seven Sisters liberal arts colleges. Vassar never took me, bastards. That's okay. So that was this opportunity, and there were not a lot. There was a sizable minority of kids who fit that profile, but the remainder of them were full pays. And, you know, I went to school with rock stars kids, you know, famous people. I went to school with the children of European royalty. You know, these were people from an entirely different world than I had ever been in before. And I was ready, being that vulnerable kid, I was ready. This is what when I look back on Sarah Lawrence now, I was educated to be a Marxist. That's the truth. That's what Sarah Lawrence does. It makes you a Marxist.
Well, that's collective. I mean, if you're thinking about it, that's collectivism. That's a sense of, you know, duty to the other before yourself. It does allow for students who are vulnerable or feel disaffected. It offers you some stability and a sense of belonging and a way to outsource your own feelings to the group. So you don't really need to think through that stuff. And you know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate, what I need to do, what I don't need to do. And that can be very appealing if you're not super grounded. And what you notice in the show is that the students who picked up on it the quickest, and the ones who made their exit before anything got, you know, were like, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to be, not so much they lived there, but they wouldn't associate with the friend group anymore because there were other people on the fringe of the friend group that said, I've lost my friend. My friends are gone into some cult thing. They recognized it lickety split and they never flinched. And when you look at and listen to these people, what do they have in common is they seem to have very strong sense of self, very good relationships with their families. Yes. So just very grounded.
They were normal.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And that my concern is that what we're doing now in our lower schools and our elementary and secondary schools is that through SEL, which makes no bones about the fact that it wants to reorient our entire society towards a more global sense of global citizenship, and where the students are essentially human capital, and they kind of lose that individualist. They're not shy about it. They say so.
Yeah, I know.
SDG goals, that what they're essentially trying to do is make your child not normal.
Yes.
Break those attachments, break that grounding with
They're
you and your
trying to
nuclear family.
they're trying to create in normal people the trauma that used to only come from a bad home.
That's correct. And I think thank you for saying that. That is the perfect way to put it. They are trying to create the trauma. And the reason I want people to understand how real this kind of predatory behavior is in the world and how it can get the person you least expect. So, for example, in the show, there is, and this is not a spoiler, y'all can look this up, it's in the news, okay? But you'll need to see it just to believe it. Imagine being the valedictorian from your high school, going on full ride to Harvard, then full ride to Columbia, and being literally days, like maybe 1 or 2 days away from being an MD. Okay. And you've grown up in an immigrant household where your parents slaved away at multiple jobs to be able to just get you through school and so on. And you're one of, I think, 3 children. And yet you're the you're the golden child. Everybody expects great things and you are driven. You've always known what you wanted to do. You just seem like the last person on planet Earth who would ever be persuaded to give up their entire life almost on a whim and get sucked into a cult by a cult of personality. You would never expect that. And yet there it is. There it is. And she wasn't even a Sarah Lawrence student. So that just kind of goes to show that the other Sarah Lawrence students became sort of officers on behalf of the guy. In fact, she only met them through her sister, who was one of them. So they start to pull you in. You mentioned before the show, you said it's the Manson family. Maybe you could expound on that, because I think people think Manson family and they think, oh, you've got to be a visible, obvious psychopath and then end up murdering people to be victims of coercive control.
No. No. Yeah. We notice the reason why Manson and Manson girls flew out of my mouth is because these are the things we notice. The most extreme manifestations, the Sharon Tate murders, I forget the name of the other people they murdered.
The LaBiancas.
Thank you. The world is teeming with psychopaths and malignant narcissists who yet are not killers. They're not murderers, but they're everything else. So we don't hear about those. They don't make the news because they're not as newsworthy, right? Nobody died. But no, why that comes to mind is it's because it's the same thing. This is a part of human nature. In 100 years, our counterparts, the Deb and Josh of the future, won't refer to the Manson girls. They'll refer to some other more culturally, chronologically appropriate. But we will be describing the same part of human nature. This has been going on since humans were humans. There are people who are narcissistic and sociopathic, but who are charismatic and emotionally or intellectually intelligent in the right way to present themselves as attractive to especially the vulnerable. And they can break you down and they can rework your mind, and you don't even know what's happening. You believe in the moment that you are being loved by this person. Right. The Manson girls thought that Charlie loved them. They certainly thought they loved Charlie, right? You don't see it. Some of them never see it. Some people never break out of it, but a lot of people do, unfortunately, after their lives have been broken. But there's nothing surprising about this. It's merely it's a more formalized example of what goes on in the abusive family. It's exactly the same thing.
That is exactly the same thing. I mean, when you watch the show, you're like, he's an abusive father
Yeah.
or a narcissistic parent. And people just, especially if you came from a household that is not like that, you picture, you picture Joan Crawford, right? You
Right.
picture
The over the
physical,
top.
right? But emotional abuse is probably more common,
Much
and
more common.
emotionally immature parents, and that can be abusive as well.
I think
It,
it's even worse than physical abuse.
it
I've been a victim of both. I'll take the beatings every single time. It's what they did to my mind and my heart that still
right.
haunts me to this day.
Same. And that is what I'm concerned about, is that they're taking, as you said, they're taking these children out of, bad homes and good homes. Obviously it's doubly bad if the kid's in a bad home, they got no escape, but they are still wrecking good, children of good homes. And as we saw so vividly in the movie, in the show, they can take a kid even from a decent home of parents who
Yeah.
love them and just tear them asunder.
There's a way in which, coming from a normal home with stable attachments, this is what we want for everyone, right? I want for everyone what I didn't have, right? But there is a way that can make you vulnerable, or does not equip you well enough to deal with these types.
That's true too.
And that way is that if you do come from a proper home with stable attachments and normal, not perfect parents, but good enough normal parents, and you have a grounded, stable sense of self in the world, such people often can be fooled by these narcissists because they don't actually believe in human evil. They don't
I
think
know
human evil is real.
it's really sad.
And when they see a guy like this or a Charles Manson, they say to themselves, well, there's a couple different ways they can go, but it can sound like this: he's just putting it on. Nobody's really like that, right? This guy's just a clown, forget about him. Or they will say to themselves, boy, this feels really weird, but I have to be wrong, because, and this is not consciously articulated, but this is what's going on in the head, because people like that aren't real. They're only characters in movies. Real humans aren't like that. So I'm just being weird, right? I'm making a big deal out of nothing.
Well, and then too, that there's no greater source of supply for one of these predators than to prey upon someone who is hard to get. So they actually derive more supply from taking the sort of normal, well-adjusted kid from a good family and turning them.
Because it's a challenge.
It's a big challenge. And so what you also see in this show is you see kids, be like, is this normal? And a couple times they even have the temerity in the beginning to say, like, is this true? And did you really do this? And then the way they're so skilled, these predators, they're so skilled at preying on that feeling that you've just described about, I got to be wrong. It's just like, are you seriously, do you have the life experience I have? Look, you're just starting your life. You're only 20 years old. I've lived a lot longer than you, and I've been here, and here. And, I know the truth. I know, you don't. You're just starting out, and you're going to doubt me? Seriously? And then the person feels so chastened.
Yes.
That they're like, I'm never opening my mouth again about that, because what do we know that's true? I am 20. This person has lived longer than I have. They do have all these titles after their name. They do have this training. So whether it's the dad in the Sarah Lawrence Storm, or it's a teacher in your 3rd or 4th or 6th or 10th graders classroom, if they come back as like, oh, do you think you know what I know? Do you think you did? If we heard a parent talk to their child that way, we'd probably more readily recognize it as abusive, or at least dismissive, which is a form, if you keep doing that, that's a form of abuse. Then when it's a stranger who actually has a title, I think a lot of parents even are like, well, they are the teacher. You're supposed to listen to the teacher. Or well, they are the expert. You're supposed to listen to the expert.
And if you are a vulnerable person who comes from a home with abuse, you have attachment problems, all, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's very effective. I'll give you an anecdote to illustrate it. Everybody can drink now. I'm going to talk about my mother. I know that's the drinking game joke. I do it because she's such a good example. I mean, I'm trying to make lemonade out of lemons here. You guys, my mother is such a good cluster B example. I mean, it's just, I don't talk about it just because it's my story, but because there's gold in them there hills, right?
Well, and you know it best.
So when I had the enormous break from my mother, what I call the great divorce 8 years ago, where I evicted her in court, put her out of my life, tried to put my broken life back together after her abuse had become so florid. I was in an extremely dysregulated, confused state. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I was 100% thoroughly gaslit, and I was trying to find my way out of it. Right. At that time, my mother and her husband had done things such as threatening to call Adult Protective Services and turn me in as an elder abuser. On what grounds? I know this sounds ridiculous. I promise you that I'm telling you the truth. On the grounds that I would not facilitate, not because I have an objection to marijuana. I don't. I smoke it every night to go to sleep. No, I'm not high all day long. I'm not a day smoker. But my mother was severely dependent on marijuana from the moment she got up in the morning until the moment she went to bed, right? She wanted me to be her dealer or pass through. She wanted me to go pick it up for arrange delivery and all this stuff. I simply didn't have the time to do it. And frankly, although I didn't tell her this at the time, I didn't want to feed her dependency. I didn't want to be the vehicle to do that. It didn't feel right to me. Right. She said, yeah, she had concocted this whole story about how it made me an elder abuser because she has a medical marijuana card and she's disabled. And I was neglecting to get the medicine for a disabled woman. Right. So this is my mother. Okay. And then, when that didn't work, my mother and her husband wrote letters to my supervisors, my board of directors, to whom I answered at my job, where I was the executive director of a national nonprofit organization, and made them aware of all of my private social media handles so they could see all of my opinions, pointed directly to my show Disaffected, called me an anti-vaxxer, and basically did the, Josh is dangerous and he's a PR liability for your organization. Do you really think it's wise to continue to allow him to be employed? They tried to take my livelihood. Yeah. Right. So this is the level of wicked depravity that my mother worked on me. Yeah. And when I reacted to this and I began talking, that's when I started talking publicly. I had never in my life, Deb, ever told anyone about my abusive mother. In fact, I defended her publicly and among my friends. This was a complete turnaround for me. I started telling the truth and I started telling it publicly.
Well, and that's how this guy got caught, actually, is somebody wrote a book.
When I did this, I got this email from my mother that rocked me back and put me back into gaslight. Remember, I had just had the experience of her trying to ruin my career and my public reputation and get me into legal trouble with the state. So I knew that she was capable of this. And then she said to me, Josh, I can't believe that you would think I would ever hurt you. What is wrong with you? I am your mother. I gave birth to you. I'm serious. I'm doing her affect. Okay. Right. I'd never hurt you. I don't know what's happened to you, but my God, that you could believe I was capable of this. And Deb, I was like, oh my God, am I crazy? What have I done? Am I calling my sainted mother? What's wrong with me? What happened to me? Oh my God, I can't believe I've heard of this. Literally, right? Yep. Like I'm sort of re-experiencing a little bit emotionally as I talk about it because it's so distinct from how I am in the world now. But yes, and I was a 41-year-old man, and she was able to do that to me.
So imagine, college age, person, or, even little kids. And you'll see that in the show very, very, very clearly. And I'm going to just show people the titles of it. And then I have like one more question for you before we have to end. But okay, so this is Stolen Youth on Hulu. If you don't have Hulu, I don't know, sign up for a trial and watch it. But the titles really tell the tale. There are 3 episodes. The first one's called The Arbiter of Truth. the person in this position does that. They make themselves the arbiter of truth. So think about your kids at school when they're getting taught, or their SEL lessons, or whatever it is going on about, feelings and what's good and what's bad and who's right and who's wrong. That somebody in a position of authority, it could even be the whole school at the same time, is the arbiter of what is true and real. Okay. So boys are not only boys anymore. They can be anything they want. Girls can be anything they want. There's no such thing as biological reality. We are now the arbiter of that truth. So that's the first one. If you question it, by the way, the problem is you, not the arbiter of truth. The second episode is called Truth Wins. So he has a slogan. Look for slogans in your child's life. Look for quick and easy talking points of, love is love. This type of thing.
Trademarked phrases,
flags, swag, anything that indicates it's almost like a little, like a reminder, like, hey, watch the bouncing ball. This is the thing. You're going to remember truth. He would say it. Truth wins. First, I tell you, I know what truth is. And now I tell you truth wins. It's to jog you back to following the protocol. And that how he did that, how he actually maintained control. And then Larry Land, the guy's name is Lawrence. And this is when they were finally deep into the cult, divorced from reality. They absolutely believed that reality was as described. How many students have you come across from whether it's, middle school on up through college, who genuinely, you see the tears, they genuinely believe they're watching a genocide. They genuinely believe, whether it was during the BLM riots, whether it's the Palestinian conflict, whatever it is, they genuinely believe America is this horrendous, oppressive, evil, horrible place. White men are going to rape them around every corner. All these, if they're female, if they're male, they're worried that they're going to be accused. It was like, we've got a fearful, anxiety-ridden, high levels of, I want to do myself harm. I'm not going to say the word. The stats are off the rails, but this is when they've finally gone into where you as a parent or a loved one, and you're talking to a young person, and like I said, it could be a young adult, and they are talking to you about the same reality. You guys inhabit the same planet, the same country, and they're describing it, and you're looking around going, what are you talking about? They're in a cult, and it may not be as organized as this one. It could be much bigger, a mass formation. But my point with this show is to say that here it is in one little extreme, like you get a fish eye view of what coercive control looks like. And now, please, I beg of the audience to take people like Josh seriously, and make sure you're listening to his podcast, by the way, because you will learn so much about all this. But take it seriously, because it's rampant, and it always has been, like you've said. But what is a little different now is that the institutional supports for it. You want to talk about something that's systemic? We have systemic cluster B at this point, in my opinion.
Yes, we do. It is. That's the thing. We have to resist the temptation to overreact to the overuse and abuse of concepts. Sometimes we overreact and say, we can never say anything that sounds like that, because if we say anything that uses the logic that person is, that means we're doing the bad that person is. That's not true. There are some people so what we call cancel culture today, that's just a modern term for social punishment for deviance. Social punishment for deviance has always been a feature of humans and always will be a feature of humans. It is morally neutral as a phenomenon. It can be properly used and it can be misused. What we call cancel culture is abuse of people. It's using social punishment. It's enacting social punishment for deviating from things that normal people should deviate from, right? So we have
repressive tolerance is basically what you're describing.
Yes. We have to resist the urge to say we can't fight back. We can't call a liar because they called us a liar and we weren't one. So if we use the word liar, that means we're just as bad as them. I mean, I'm sorry, but a lot of people are this goddamn dumb. Not dumb.
Or if you use the word narcissist,
scared enough. Scared.
Oh, that's overused.
Yeah, I know. I hear it all the time, and I'm just like, okay, fine. Then go talk to the people who are overusing it, because it sure as shit isn't me. But I get what I would say to normal parents of either, and I'm not a parent, right? So, understand that I'm not claiming that I know. There are things all of you who have children know intuitively that I will never understand because I haven't had the experience. But I have been a child just like all of you, and I've been an abused child. And I've been one who didn't understand his abuse, and now I'm on the other side and I can look back. So It comes from that perspective. And what I would say, please ground your children in reality. I might say, and you have to figure out how to say this in vocabulary that fits their age and development, and their set of conceptual experiences.
Sure.
But find a way to say something like, and this has to be a repeated lesson. This has to be part of the fabric of family life. It can't be one sit down. You can't have the birds and bees talk. This has to be an ongoing part of conversation. You say something like, Jane, there are all kinds of people in the world. And one of the things that's sad and sometimes is frightening about the world is that there are, in fact, bad people.
Yeah.
It's not most people, but there are actually bad people. They're broken in ways that we don't understand. There may be reasons they became that way, but they don't mean well to other people. They might even think they do. And you might think that they're a really nice person. Mm-hmm. But what they're really doing is trying to control you, and they're trying to make it hard for you to see the truth. And they're trying to make you feel scared. And if you know somebody, if you are with somebody who makes you feel like you've done something wrong if you ask a question, or if you're with somebody and you can see something, like you can see that a red dodgeball just bounced across the road, and that person says, there was no ball there, you must have made it up. If ever anything happens like that to you, Jane, and you get this weird feeling in your stomach, you're right. Your gut is telling you that the person you're with is not a truth teller. This is a person who tells lies and fibs. They're real. And you are going to meet them, Jane. And sometimes I'm not going to be there. But if you meet somebody like this and you feel that feeling, note it in your head, come back, let's talk about it. Because I've met these people too. And I want you to know that you're not crazy for noticing it.
Yeah,
Something like that.
So important. That's so important. And I think just making sure the kids know they have a right to their own boundaries, even from you, if necessary. Yes. If that's how you start to model it that that's okay for them to not be ready for a hug or not want to talk about their feelings.
Yes.
Go ahead and model it. Make sure they know from a very young age that nobody has a right to their innards on demand, because that's how SEL works. Is it says it uses social pressure and social control to get to the inside of your kid and make them feel like they are required, they're obligated to share that, or they're a bad person. And that's a big problem.
That is what is going to get them socially or emotionally killed.
Yes.
Okay. I know what it's like to be as a child. I had no right of privacy for my mind and my soul. And I know that sounds melodramatic, but I mean it very literally.
Yep.
I not only didn't have, when you're a kid, you don't have absolute privacy, right? If your mom wants to go into your bedroom and make sure you don't have drugs in there, she has the right to do that. You don't have to like it. You can scream at her if you want, but that's what parents' jobs are. But you don't have absolutely no boundaries. But as a child, not only did I not have the right to make my bedroom off limits, which was appropriate. A 6-year-old can't say this is my space and you can never check up on me. But I literally did not have the right to think differently, to feel differently, or to arrange the emotional expression on my face differently from my mother. My mother would say things to me like, I can see what you're really thinking.
Oh God, that's bad.
I can see what you're really feeling.
No, never let anyone tell you what you're feeling. That's terrible. It's terrible.
This isn't it. It is an emotional form of rape, is what it is. It really honestly is. So don't prepare your kids for that. If you're a normal parent, you're not doing anything that's going to make a kid feel that way.
No.
But they need to know that they're going to run across these people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I wish we had more time. I could talk to you all day long.
I know, likewise. But
I've got to run and wrap it up. But please, everybody, follow the Disaffected podcast. Listen weekly. If you have the stomach for it, watch the series and you'll understand viscerally what we have just talked about. So thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you, Deb.
Really
Thanks for
appreciate
doing
it.
what you do.
Thank you.